Okay, the last page, the word problems, we're going to quickly do this because we did some of this in class already. I hope we did. Okay, so I will move this forward like that. And the main thing is to realize that this is a square. They turned it sideways. Every time we have a square, we can use a square root to find its sides. If it was an area of, say, 25, it's not, but say it was, I could go, this is 5 by 5. I take the square root of 25, I get 5 by 5. It happens to be 750. So all I do is I take the square root of 750, which is square root of 750, which is 27.4, and all the sides are 27.4. So that's the first part. The second part is, how far does he run if he goes from home to second base? Home to second base. I just add these two together. So that is 27.4 plus 27.4, and I get an answer of 54.8. That's part A. Okay? That's how far he's run. The second part is, what happens if he hits the ball from home plate all the way to second base? Well, here's your right angle triangle, and we can use a squared plus b squared equals c squared. So this is 27.4 squared plus 27.4 squared equals c squared. Now 27.4 squared seems like a big number, but they already gave it to us. It's 750. Okay, so we did it here. It's 750. So 27.4 squared is just 750. So essentially they go on 750 plus 750 equals c squared. Again, I'm sorry for the room, but that's how she is. I get 1500 equals c squared. Take the square root of both sides, and I get the square root of 1500 is 38.7. So your answer is 38.7. We are going to move all this to the top and try to delete some of this. Okay? The next question, again, is a square. So we know we have a square, and every time we have a square and we have area, and it's a square, we can take the square root. So we want to take the square root of 576, square root. Use a calculator. Square root of 576 is 24. That means this dimension is 24. We want to take the square root of the inner box, which is 256. So the square root of 256, 256 square root is 16. So that means the house has a dimension of 16. Now, hopefully when you're doing your work, it's a lot neater. I'm just trying to figure this out so that it's quick. We know the distance from here to here is 24. The distance from here to here is 16. So I know that if I do this, this is 16. So 16 plus what number will give me 24? So I go 24, take away 16, I get 8. That means the distance from here to here plus here to here has to give me 8. And because this is in the very dead center of the house, or very dead center of the property, it says in the middle of the property, that means this distance and this distance are exactly the same, so it has to be 4 and 4 because it has to add up to 8. So the fence is 4. Okay, so now we have the last question. Move all this up. And she has, Melissa earns, so she earns $45.25 and $18.25 for babysitting. She spends $31.64, and all we do is we actually add these numbers together. Okay, so we go 45.25 plus 18.25, and that gives me 63.53. And the next one is 31.64 plus 15 48. And now we're asked to write an addition statement. So I go 63, 53 is what she's earned. I'm going to add what she has spent, which is a negative 47.12. That's an addition statement. Addition statements have to have the adding sign, so there's A. And then B, how much does she have left? I just figure out what the actual addition statement says. The signs are different and I'm adding, so I keep the sign of the largest number and I subtract these. So 63.53 take away 47.12, and I get an answer of $16.41. Okay, we're going to start here with the second part of the rational numbers exam. So we'll do this first question here. Make sure when you're doing this, you're going to multiply here first. You're going to divide here second. And your very last step you'll be adding. That's the order of operations. Okay, so let's convert this fraction. We go 3 times 7 plus 1, which is 22 over 3, a negative. We're going to multiply that by 6 over 55. Whatever I get from an answer there, I'm going to add that to times plus 3 over 2 divided by, I might as well take this guy, minus 2 over 7. Okay? So there's all my fractions so far, so let's just do a little bit first. Let's do this part first. And then we will do this part. So that's the division sign here. There should be a minus sign in there. We'll do this part second. Okay? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go 22 times 6. And 22 times 6 is 132. And then 3 times 55, which is 165. And remember, this is a negative here, so that's a negative number up there too. Be careful with that. I'm going to bracket this just for my own sake. We're going to add whatever I get from this answer here. I'm going to go down here so I can actually see it. This is 3 over 2. I'm going to multiply and reciprocate. Okay? This is going to give me negative 21 over 4. Now that goes back up to here, negative 21 over 4. So what I'm going to need is common denominators. So I'm going to multiply this by 165 and the top here by 165. I'll multiply this guy by 4 and this guy by 4. Again, remember the easiest way to get common denominators is just multiply the bottoms together. I'm going to do that way down here on the bottom. I get 660 on the bottom there. I'm going to add a 660 there because 4 times 165 and 165 times 4. My next step is to go 132 times 4, which is 528. Remember that's a negative. I'm then going to go 21 times 165, which is 3,465, which is also a negative. So then our next step is, because we have common denominators, we can just add the tops. The rules of integers suggest that the signs are the same, so we will keep the signs and we will add the numbers. So 528 plus 3,465 is 3,993 over 660. When I take this fraction, and again I'm sorry, I'm going to move it all the way over here so I have some room, and I divide the two, I get 6 and 5 over 100 after I reduce it left over, which is 6 and 1/20th. But remember, negative 6 and 1/20th is your answer. Okay, so now I'm going to try to delete some of this. to see how this all works, see if I can actually get rid of some of it. And hopefully I'll pause it for now. Okay, the next question, we have negative 3 1/3 minus 2 decimal 2 repeating. So when I'm dealing with this, all I'm going to do is I'm going to start writing all of this as a improper fraction. Okay, so this one first, times plus, I'm going to get negative 10/3 minus, keep the brackets, because it's a repeating decimal, I can write that as 2 and 2/9, again times plus, to get 20/9, and it's a negative, and I'm going to multiply that by 1 2/5 times plus, I get 7/5. Just going to erase that a bit. And I get 7/5. I'm going to worry about the bottom part of this later once I get the top one done. So the first thing I have to do here is I have to multiply. So I leave the top, 10/3. I'm going to subtract whatever I get from negative 20 times 7, which is negative 140. 9 times 5 is 45. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to look at these two signs, and I don't like those signs, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine them and make them a plus. I can do that. Or you can add its opposite, which is adding a positive, so I'm just going to know that it's a positive. I'm going to times this by 15, times this by 15. I now have 150/45 plus 140/45. The bottoms are the same, denominators are the same. I look at the top numbers, the numerators, the signs are different. I keep the sign of the largest number, which happens to be a negative, and I subtract, and I get 10/45. So now that it's negative 10/45, I'm going to erase the rest so that I can actually have some room to work. So we know the top is negative 10/45. So I'll see how much of this I can get rid of. And we said the top was negative 10/45. We're going to divide that by whatever I get on the bottom here. So I'm going to do that on the bottom here. I have 2 3/4. I'm going to convert that to going times plus, and I get 8, 9, 10, 11/4. Good. I'm going to take 3.4 and I'm going to convert that to 34/10, because this is 3 and the decimal means and 4/10. That's what 4/10 means. So I'm just going to convert by going times plus to get 34/10. I'll bring that back down there. I'm going to add 34/10. Again, we don't really like using those subtracting integers, but we can do that for now. Common denominator here will be 20. So again, we're going to go times 5 times 5. I get 55/20 minus times 2 times 2, 68/20. 55 minus 68 is 13/20, and it's a negative. So now that answer comes back up to here, negative 13/20. Obviously we can't leave it like that, so we're going to rewrite it. We're going to rewrite it as negative 10/45 divided by negative 13/20. The rule is I take this, I change it to multiplication, I take the second fraction and I reciprocate it to 20/13. I'm going to put the negative up top, I can leave it there, I like it there, and I rewrite the first fraction. Now I go top times top, which is positive 200. I go bottom times bottom, which is 585. The last number ends with a 0 or 5, so I can start reducing. I can divide by 5s. So I'm going to divide 200 by 5. 200 divided by 5 is 40. 585 divided by 5 is 117. And that's your final answer. So your answer for this question is 40 over 117. Okay, so now I'm going to do the next question. And I'm going to start clearing some of this stuff out if I can. Just to give us some room to work here. Hopefully. Alright, our next question. So the next question is 2 multiplied by the square root of 10 plus the square root of 12 divided by the square root of 5. First thing I'm going to do is I need to do the square root first. The square root I do first because it's considered an exponent. I don't multiply before I do an exponent. So the square root of 10 is 3.16. And I'm going to multiply it by 2. I'm going to add to that whatever the square root of 12 is. The square root of 12 is 3.46. I'm going to divide that by whatever I get from the square root of 5, which is 2.24. Next step I do is the multiplication. So then I go 2 times 3.16, which is 6.32 plus 3.46. 3.46. I'm going to add those together, and I'm going to divide by 2.24. So the top I get 9.78 when I add those two numbers, divided by 2.24. So 9.78 divided by 2.24 gives me 4.37 as an answer. Okay, so I'm going to clear this one. I'll clear the bottom here, and we'll move on to the next question. Next question is the square root of the square root of 25 plus the square root of 49, all divided by the square root of 25 plus 49. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to deal with all of my exponents first, which is square roots. I'm going to do the square root. The square root of 25 is 5. The square root of 49 is 7. I'm going to add those together to get the square root of 12. I divide that by the square root of 25 is 5 plus 49. Nothing changes there, which is 54. The square root of 12 is 3.46. I have to divide that by 54. So 3.46 divided by 54. And I get an answer of 0.06. It's okay if it's a weird looking decimal. We're dealing with rational numbers. Rational numbers are all decimals, all fractions. 0.06 is a good rational number. It's just a weird looking decimal. Okay, the next question, let me clear some of this. Move that up. We have a square here. We got to deal with that one first. And once we deal with the square, we'll deal with the division. And once we've dealt with the division, we deal with the adding. Okay, so the first thing we need to do, that square applies to everything in the bracket. So that's negative 2.4 times a negative 2.4, which is 5.78 positive. We divide that by, let me rewrite the whole question here. Okay, next step is this. On my calculator, I go 5.2 divided by 5.76, and I get a negative 0.9. A negative and a positive give me a negative. I put that in here, and I'm going to add the brackets. Now again, this part here is a separate question. So this is 3.41 plus 3.41 plus whatever I get from that division question. So I'm going to leave it in brackets. The signs are different now, okay? So what I can do is I keep the sign of the largest number, which is an addition sign, and I just subtract those two. So 3.41 take away 0.9 is 2.51, and that's your answer. Okay, so the next question, get rid of that, move this one up. It's a little bit harder to see, and again, I'm sorry for the photocopying on this. It is what it is. So we will now do the top part, the bottom part separately. So I will do this part first, and whatever I get from that, I'll do that part second, and whatever I get from that, I'll add. That's just for the top. So let's rewrite the top. 0.08. Sorry, not 0.08. 0.8, and that's a negative. I'm going to add to that whatever I get from this. So let's do that. So 1.2 divided by 0.3, and that just happens to be the number 4. Now it seems a little weird that when I'm dividing a number I get bigger, but when I'm dividing something less than 1, the number actually does get bigger. So this is 4 multiplied by 1.5. That's next. 4 times 1.5 equals 6. So on the top so far, I'm left with negative 0.8 plus 6. 0.8 plus, well, you know what, we'll do the bottom part. Let's do the bottom part now. Again, I do the multiplication before addition, so I go 12.8 times 0.2 equals, a negative and a negative is a positive, 2.56. I'm going to add to that whatever I get from this little bit here. So 4.5 times 0.5, and I get 2.25. The next step is add those together. So it's 2.56 plus 2.25 is 4.81. Okay, so that's the top. I've done the top. I've done the bottom. Now I'm going to finish the top, and I'm going to go negative 0.8 plus 6. Signs are different. Keep the sign of the largest number, so I get a positive answer. And I subtract the 2, and I get 5.2. I still have to divide that by 4.81. And I get a weird answer of 1.08, which is a positive answer. Okay, last question on this page. So I'm going to delete all this again. I'm going to do all my work above it just so I can do it. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to convert. It's 2 1/2, which gives me 5 over 2. I'm going to add to that the brackets. I'll leave the brackets. 4 times 1 plus 3, which is 7 over 4. I'm going to keep these brackets in. 1/2 times 1/4 is 1/8. And I'm going to square it, and I'm going to minus 1/4. Okay, so far I've just dealt pretty much with this. I've converted this, and I've converted that. Next step is I do all my exponents, so I'm going to leave 5 over 2. I'm going to add 7 over 4 plus 1/8 times 1/8 is 1 over 64. Top times top, bottom times bottom, so this is 1 over 64. I leave the minus 1/4 still. Next step is I deal with what's in brackets first. Common denominator there is probably going to be 64. So I'm going to times 16 times 16. So I'm going to rewrite it as 5 over 2 plus times 16 times 16. 7 times 16 is 112 over 64 plus 1 over 64. Minus 1 over 4. I haven't changed that yet. I'm going to bring this guy over here so I can do it. 5 over 2 still, plus, do brackets first. 113 over 64, minus 1 over 4. Again, I'm just doing this part first. Because I'm adding and subtracting, I could do them all at once. So let's convert everything to 64s. Okay? So I'm going to times 2 by 32. times that by 32, and 32 times 5 is 160 over 64, plus 113 over 64, minus, I think we said 16 times 4, so 16 over 64, because I went times 16 times 16. The bottoms are all the same. I get a denominator of 64. I can add and subtract the tops. So I go 160 plus 113 minus 16, and I get 257 over 64. If I take 267 and I figure out how many times does 64 go into 267, literally I can, or 257, I can go 64 and 257. 64, and I would just use a calculator. I go 257 divided by 64. I get 4 on top. So this is going to be 4. I'm going to do it in a different color so we can actually see it maybe. 4 whole numbers. Okay, and then we got to figure out the remainders. So then the trick is I go 4 times 64, and I get 256. So that means there's 1 left over. So the answer is 4 and 1 out of 64 as a final answer. That is page 3.